Okay, so we've talked about the behaviours and the survival strategies, and underneath that there's often emotional response, but underneath the emotional response are the core wounds. And this is what we are particularly interested in when it comes to emotional work, because when we can start to understand what is really driving all of this, because it's when you're coaching someone and they've got a behaviour of lying, for example, you can keep working on that top layer of lying, but actually what's the emotional response underneath? Is there a fear that's going on? And then underneath the fear, what is the core wound of what is driving the lying? If you can get underneath that and identify that and work with that, then you are more likely to make real change.
I think one of the key things for me in this slide is that a lot of therapies are aimed at the behaviors. So NLP, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, aimed at the behavior, change the behavior, change the behavior. Then there's a lot of therapies that are aimed at the emotional response, emotional freedom technique, for example, NLP also to a certain extent, counseling, there are loads of them. But there really aren't very many. I've not really found very many, apart from ours, that really deals with the core wounds. Like, you might get there accidentally with some of those others, but you're not absolutely aiming for them. And that's where I think that the work we do is so incredibly effective and quick, actually. And some of the students that have just gone through this training, we've got someone who's been a psychotherapist for many, many, many years who was like, I don't really need to do this work. And then she sat there and she went, oh my gosh, like, this is the fastest and most effective modality I've worked with. So yes, it is about getting to those core wounds, but it's also about understanding where different therapies or different modalities are working.
When we look at the emotions, it is, again, there are therapies out there that like to categorize that this is a negative emotion, this is a positive emotion, and that very much communicates that we want to be going in the direction of the positive. Nobody wants to experience the negative, whereas we see things very, very differently. That actually, as human beings, we are a collection of all these different emotions, and this is what makes life so unbelievably rich. And when we feel that we don't want to feel any of the negative ones and we just want to feel the positive, then we are numbing a part of us. And as soon as we start to numb the dark, difficult, challenging emotions, then there is this direct relationship with all of the higher, more joyful emotions. They are related. The only way that we can come into a deep an ecstatic joy is if we are comfortable coming into our deep pain. So with our clients, it's about having this communication that all emotions are welcome, all of them. If you're feeling anything, we're not going to try and railroad over it or try and get rid of it. We're going to be with it. We're going to get close to it. We're going to understand it. We're going to feel it, because it's like the weather. As soon as you start, the sun comes out or the rain comes down or the storm comes, it passes when you allow it to come through. And that is what we're doing with emotional work.
Well, you always just say it really nicely, that you would say that, ultimately it's like, as a human, we're a rainbow, but it's like we're saying, I don't like seeing the color blue in the rainbow. You're like, well, I can't see a rainbow without the color blue. So actually, I need to be able to see all of the colors to enjoy the rainbow. So it's true of being human. We have this whole spectrum of emotions. And what we tend to do is only want to focus on those positive emotions because they're comfortable. But actually, no growth happens in that place. If you were to write up on a board like this, some really, the 5 most challenging experiences of your life, then the 5 most positive experiences of your life, sitting in the garden in the sunshine, laughing with your friends, drinking Prosecco, is unlikely to have been one of the biggest catalysts of change. It would have been lovely in a moment to experience deep joy and, gratitude and all of that delicious juiciness. But it's not the time where we grow, we find out what we're made of. And they're very rarely the times that we look back on in our lives and go, yeah, that was one of the moments that absolutely made me who I am. So ironically, when we stop seeing our emotions as positive and negative in this binary way, and just seeing them as all part of this really beautiful rainbow, and with the acknowledgement of, wow, some of those, they take some work to get through. Like, that is a full-on workout, getting through the days where I'm feeling those. But I know that they are the days I'm going to have the most gratitude for. And the irony is that some of the most challenging experiences of my life, I now look back on with the deepest gratitude, because they were the times that made me. And that was actually a real turning point for me when I was in one of those, the most challenging, probably the most challenging time of my life. And I was going through every single one of those blooming emotions. And I was in absolute, just bereft and just in floods of tears. And I remember suddenly feeling a deep gratitude for being able to feel those feelings, because when I had PTSD and when I had postnatal depression, I was so numbed, I couldn't feel them. And so suddenly the gratitude to be able to feel the discomfort, because that must have meant that I had healed part of my brain that literally couldn't handle it. And suddenly having gratitude for those deep emotions just transformed it.
Okay, so what are the core wounds? We've kind of simplified them, but it gives us a nice structure to work with.
So I want to say that these are the 5 core wounds of humanity. So, like, this is
Good.
under everything.
It wasn't
Absolutely under.
we...
No. We haven't made it up.
Oh, good.
You Google them. Some people say 7, but I'm like, well, you're just repeating them. But so we have simplified them a little. But there are essentially, the psychology behind this is there are just 5 core beliefs or core wounds across humanity. So what's interesting about that is that Laura might have had her stuff, and so over there might have their stuff, and you might have your stuff. But underneath it will be these same wounds. We're all the same, actually. And there's the compassion. There's why there's no persecution, because there's the compassion. And it's not that we will only have one of these. We could have all of these. They could present at different times, but we tend to resonate with a few of them. There might be one where we go, yeah, that's not mine. I don't feel that. I've never really felt that. I understand it. I just don't really feel it. That's not my trigger. But there might be a couple in there that you tend to resonate with.
So when we can start to, with a client and with ourselves, when we can start to identify these, and usually if you're sat there and you're looking at these and one of them triggers an emotional response in you, that's probably the one to go and look at. But if we can start to get into these with our clients, this is when the juicy stuff really happens. This is when radical change can happen. And looking at the needs, that can also be very powerful. So, for example, feeling worthless it's an unmet need for autonomy and self-governance. Rejection is an unmet need for belonging. Abandonment is an unmet need for nurturing. Feeling powerless is an unmet need for permission. Betrayal is an unmet need for trust. When we can start to understand what those core wounds are and what those needs are to be able to heal those wounds, then the person can start to create this in their lives. How can you create belonging in your life? What does belonging mean to you? Using these kind of questioning tools in your coaching practice.
And then the real magic comes when we stop looking outside of ourselves for those to be met. Because it's interesting, if you go back to that slide for a moment, there's a few things there, which is, okay, autonomy and self-governance. Yes, I can do that. Oh, well, an unmet need for belonging. Well, then I need to find some people where I belong, or a place where I belong. No, that's in you. That's you. That's you that you're missing that for. Abandonment. Well, I need to find some nurturing then, somebody who'll nurture me. No,
I need my
that's
mum.
you. Yeah, I'm looking for my mum. Yeah, no, you're now your mum. Even if you have a mum and your mum's great, the big transition to being a fully emotionally intelligent, conscious adult is this is now me. I am now my own parent. An unmet need for permission. Yeah, there is no adult who's going to come in and give you that permission.
You've got to find
and
it yourself.
I don't know if you've looked out the window, but I don't actually think there are any adults running the country or schools or anything. I don't think there are any adults. Just no. So we're going to have to do this all ourselves. That's Russell Brand goes on about this, isn't it? An autonomous collective of self-empowered individuals who are actually in this place. So that permission, it has to come from you. No one is going to stand there and give you the permission. And the unmet need for trust, it's actually yourself that you're looking for the trust from. It's like you're not trusting yourself. And I know that might all sound like real, like pop psychology, but I absolutely promise you we could dive into each and every single one of those and explain to you why in more depth. It's actually in yourself. That's the real trick here.
So this is the transformation that happens when we find this within ourselves, that I love myself, that I am enough for myself, I forgive myself, I've got me, I'm able to protect myself. And that is when we can find these solutions within ourselves, it's such an empowering place to be, that we're no longer looking outside of ourselves to have those needs met, that we're finding it within.